is a one-year member of our Toastmasters.
I know.
He grew up in a military household where his father served 22 years in the United States Navy. Now, after graduating from high school,
He's Irish.
William Wallace followed his father's footsteps, enlisting in the Navy himself. And during his 9-year tenure on ships and supporting the United States Navy SEAL teams, he saw as firsthand the effects of what war does on our new generation. Through his work with veterans and PTSD, he has seen the impact of devastation on the veterans in our community and at home. And he wants to share that with us today. He's given us today a talk called The Watch. It's a 5 to 7 minute manual speech. Will you please welcome William Wallace.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Fellow Toastmasters, it is great to be back, but today I'm going to be talking about a serious topic, and one that's personal to me. It was a late afternoon when Don Liston received a frantic call from his from his daughter-in-law. "I don't know where he is. I don't know what to do." She was panicking. She was frightened. A million thoughts raced through his head, and as he called, he tried to dial his son's phone. And as it rang, it just felt like an eternity, all these feelings he was feeling. Luckily, his son answered, but he knew something was wrong. His son, normally stoic, normally brave, was sobbing. "Dad, I'm so sorry. I love you, but I'm so sorry." His dad pleaded with him. "Where are you?" He wouldn't tell him. He asked him, "Do you have a gun with you?" He said he did. But he wouldn't unload it. And with one final goodbye, an apology, and an "I love you," he hung up the phone. That would be the last time that Don Liston would talk to his son, Petty Officer Joshua Liston, or Lipstein. And when I read that story, it reminded me of a poem that some of you may be familiar with that's read at traditional Navy retirements entitled "The Watch," which talks about how those in the service give their time and their efforts so that we can live our lives, so that we can have the things that we have today and the freedom. But when they are relieved of this watch, who watches them and who takes care of them? Sadly, Petty Officer Lipstein's story is not unique. One veteran commits suicide every 65 minutes in the United States. And what can we do? There are some things we can do. We can watch for the signs. Some are obvious, some are not. We can offer alternatives to traditional therapies. And we can also find ways to improve the VA's response to these situations. Of all the suicides in the US, 1 in 5 is a veteran. According to a study done by the Iraq and Afghanistan war veterans, 30% of all veterans have considered committing suicide. And so, what are some of the signs? Sometimes they're obvious. You see it, you hear about it, people feel depressed, they're different. Some may be more internalized. I had a friend of mine who served in Iraq, and you wouldn't really know it when you talked to him, but then when he would start drinking, he would tell some stories about how him and a friend switched seats in a Humvee that later hit an IED. His friend died, he didn't. He feels guilty, it should have been him. And now he has a daughter to worry about. Sometimes these signs don't show themselves until later. And a lot of times people see the signs, but we make excuses. "Oh, it's okay, he'll get over it. It'll pass in time. Time heals all wounds," we say. A lot of times you see something and you do nothing. But that alone can be enough to walk up to somebody. "How are you doing?" Might be enough to save a life. And with all the problems that people have, we need alternative solutions. Later on I'll talk about the VA, but the VA can't handle everything, and not everybody is geared or ready to do a therapy. Not everybody wants to sit on a couch and tell their feelings to some stranger who they don't know, who can't relate to them because you've never been there and you don't understand. So we need to find other ways. And one of those ways, in a way that I've been working on myself with some friends of mine, is through music. There are music organizations, there's Guitars for Vets and Resounding Joy here in San Diego that help bring veterans together to play music, to help get over what happened to them, to help return them to a sense of normalcy. I think a lot of times, many of these veterans don't feel like they belong in society when they return. After experiencing something like that, you don't know what normal is. And normal is different for everybody. And there are other groups here that help as well through MMA. I met a young lady who teaches yoga to those with PTSD. And there are researchers that have found that this is a very effective form of treatment. Not only are you surrounding them with people who can relate, but you're surrounding them with people who understand, and you're all traveling this journey together. The warrior ethos states that you never leave a fallen soldier behind. And in this way, they can all help carry each other. And one of the biggest issues with this problem in particular is that the VA does not have the resources to handle this. According to a recent USA Today article, many vets must wait at least a month to see somebody who can even diagnose their situation. 1,600 new mental patients were going through the doors of the VA every week, and a third of them had to wait more than a month in order for, or more than 14 days, which is the VA's own mandated limit. Within 14 days they see you, and they can't even do that for a third of the patients. And so while more people were added recently to the crisis lines to help with this problem, the VA still lacks the resources. The VA, for those of you that don't know, is not very efficient. It's a government organization, and they're not known for their efficiency. But that is part of the problem. We need more resources for these soldiers. And the predominance of the problem isn't even from Iraq and Afghanistan. 61% of the suicides that are done by veterans are veterans 50 and older. And Vietnam War era. And so, I want us to stand as a nation together and to tell these soldiers, these sailors, and these airmen that you are not alone, that you stand relieved not only of the watch, but of your burden, of the pain that you are feeling. We will stand together. We have the watch.